Hello, my name is Scott McGurn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've spoken a lot about ego versus enlightenment. Today I'm going to be talking about the issue of sex and marriage. Now, you've heard a lot said about this, but I'm going to share something with you today that you've never heard before from anybody, and it's something you need to know. I'm going to go into history, and then after that I'm going to go into the present day to share perspectives that will represent missing pieces that you need to have in order to put together your own puzzle. When I was young, in my 20s, I spoke to religious leaders asking them, what is the basis of sexual morality? I've heard since I was born, sex outside of marriage is wrong. I've also heard, if it feels good, do it. Okay, how is a person supposed to make sense of those two incongruent positions? Okay, so we're going to go into the past. We're going to see what marriage is, what it was, what it has been throughout human history, in every religion, every culture, all around the world. And it only changed, really, in the 1960s and 70s. This is something a lot of young people don't know. And I'm not saying the past is better than the present, but I am saying it's different. In the past, there was a simplicity. Today, there is a complexity. So, I'm going to begin with that. What I am going to share with you now is something that's very difficult to share. There's a reason why you've never heard this before, and there's a reason why they don't talk about it in churches and synagogues. There's a reason they don't talk about it in school. This is going to be one of the most politically incorrect things you've ever heard. But it talks about human history. In fact, this is how marriage has been from the beginning of time until really the 1960s or 70s. All cultures, all religions. And you need to know this, not because it's right, not because we want to go back in time, but so that we can see what marriage was versus what it is now and how it relates, okay? I will explain why that is important. So right now I'm going to read the earliest recorded marriage that we can find. This is from the New Oxford Annotated Bible. This is a very direct translation. It's not a paraphrase, so it's difficult to read, but you'll get what's being said. This is not trying to describe good or bad. It's a story of Laban's daughters marrying Jacob and how the ceremony went. I'm going to read it beginning to end, and then I'm going to talk about it. Not because I want you to read the Bible. No, I read whatever you want. I have to read this first so you'll know I'm not making this stuff up. That's how amazing it is, okay? Genesis 29, starting from verse 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful and lovely. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her maid, and in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "It is not done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and I will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Oh man. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to wife. Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. Here's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, in ancient marriages, I shouldn't really say ancient. They're still doing this in many countries in the world today. Throughout human history, two families would get together. They would agree on the marriage. Now, it was frequently an arranged marriage, and it was frequently not. But the families had to agree. They would come together. There would be a feast. At some point in the feast, toward the middle of the feast, the mother of the bride would take the bride and the groom by the hand. She would lead them to her own tent. This is the tent of the mother of the bride. The young couple goes into the tent. They have sex, okay? The male wifes the female. The act of wifing is the act of sex. Direct translation would be the F word. The groom wifes the bride. The result of the wifing is that she becomes his wife. The act of sex was the act of marriage. There has never been another way to do it, ever. Ever, ever, ever. In fact, if even in Canada and in the United States, back in the 1950s, where you did have a marriage license, you did have a religious ceremony, you could go back to City Hall or wherever you had this done, and you could say, the young couple never consummated the marriage. Now, what does consummate mean? The groom never wifed the bride. Well, the marriage certificate, gonzo, instant annulment. Why? He didn't wife her. It was all about wifing. It was all about sexual intercourse. Marriage has never been anything else. So if there was no wifing, there was no marriage. This has been true and remains so. If the marriage is not consummated, it can be tossed out because there's nothing there. The marriage license, the certificate of marriage, the religious leader saying, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," all of that is crap. It never meant anything and it never will. Okay, marriage is the act of sexual intercourse. The ancients would describe it this way. To have a covenant in the eyes of God, there has to be blood. So God gave us the virgin so that when we break her, the virgin bleeds. This is a blood covenant in the eyes of God. All who defile this covenant shall die. This was more than a contract. This was a blood covenant. The ring symbolized the act of wifing. He has wifed the bride. The wifing has taken place. They are now married. Okay. Again, I am not endorsing this. I am not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying that historically, this has been true since Adam and Eve, since the beginning of time, even since caveman days, although we don't have any records from that time. All of this seems to be very consistent with nature because it doesn't matter what culture you go to, you find people on an island and they've had no contact with other humans. This is going to be what their marriages look like. They still do this in Afghanistan. So let me take this a little bit further because I want to let you know how extreme and consistent this was. When the young couple was in the tent, they had to retain the sheet, described as the cloth. The virgin, when she's wifed, would bleed a little bit onto the sheet. Now, this sheet was then presented by the young couple to the mother of the bride. This is why this was all done in the mother's tent, because the mother had a personal interest in proving that her daughter was a virgin. Okay, so the young couple would present the cloth to the mother of the bride, who would then hold it up to the community as a public demonstration that her daughter was a virgin. This brings honor to her and to the marriage itself. In the event that the virgin does not bleed, this gets really bad, and this is one of the reasons why nobody talks about this anymore. If the mother of the bride cannot produce this cloth, what happens is the bride is taken out, beaten to a pulp by her loved ones and everybody else in her village, the very people she's known since the day she was born, friends and family, extended family, people she loves, people that love her, well, they don't seem to love her anymore, because they beat the living hell out of her and then they stone her. Now, the way that works is, once she's beaten to a pulp and can't move, they stand around here in a circle. They take large rocks. Now, if you can comprehend how bad this is for her, then I'll give you credit for that, because it's a lot to comprehend. They stand there and they pelt her with rocks until she's dead, until she's hamburger. All right? Can you imagine what it would be like to have your loved one standing around you in a circle, stoning you to death? Well, that's how it was. It's still that way in Afghanistan. So, this is how it was. In fact, if you were a young man, you had a girlfriend and you had sex with her, or God forbid, you rape her, you take her into the bushes and you rape her, you weren't charged with rape. The way it worked was, you were brought to a judge or to a leader, accused, and the sentence would be, you have to pay her father a fine. I think it was about 50 silver coins or 25 silver coins. And you were told, you can never, ever divorce this woman for all your days. You take care of her, she's yours. You broke it, you own it. It's like being in a camera store. You break something, you drop that camera on the floor. You broke it, you just bought that camera, okay? You took my daughter out, you broke it, you own it. You wifed it, you own it. It was all about wifing. That's what marriage was. If 100 years ago a young man asked his mother or his father, I have heard about something called sex before marriage. Sex outside of marriage, what does that mean? Well, they would laugh and they'd say there's no such thing. And he'd say, well, what do you mean? Well, they'd say, sex is marriage, son. There is no other thing. When you have sex with a woman, that is marriage. She's your wife. You take care of her until the day you die. You raise the children. You might have 8, 10 children. You'll spend the rest of your life taking care of them. That's how it works, son. There is no such thing as sex outside of marriage. Sex is marriage. You don't have sex before, after. Sex and marriage is one thing, son, not two things. It's one thing, not two things. So how do we deal with that in modern society? How do we deal with the fact that from the beginning of time, that's what marriage, sex and marriage, was all about? Our brains have been hardwired to have these monogamous lifelong relationships, and now we live in a society of chaos. I mean, obviously, modern society is a lot better in so many ways. God forbid that we should treat women and children like property. Everything about that is bad. That is the worst of an ego-based society, that women and children should be nothing more than property, traded and traded for cattle. You know, if your son will marry my daughter, I'll give you 10 goats. And this went on all the time. It was a property exchange. This is all about the human ego, and we need to understand that. We need to rise above that, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. So just try to comprehend. That's what marriage was, and it has always been that way. So please watch the next video, because we need to understand what that means for us in modern society. How do we deal with a brain that's been hardwired for this, For thousands of years, it's hardwired into our genetic memory, into our bones, that this is how it is, this is what it is, this is how it's supposed to be. And now we have modern society. What do we do with that? So join me for the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribing is the most important thing you can do to help spread these videos. YouTube wants you to subscribe. So do that and join us for the next video. My name is Scott McKern and I have a lot more to say on this issue. Thank you for your time.